Dr. Elena Rice pulled her thermal jacket tighter against the bitter Antarctic wind. 6 weeks of excavation had yielded nothing but ice, rock, and frustration. The anomalous energy readings that had brought her team to this desolate location remained unexplained, and funding was running out. "Last day, Dr. Rice," shouted Marcus, her graduate assistant, over the howling wind. "Should we start packing up the equipment?" Elena stared at her ground-penetrating radar display, the anomaly still pulsing faintly 200 meters below. "One more core sample. Just one more." Marcus nodded reluctantly and signaled the drilling team. The massive drill bit pierced the ice with practiced efficiency, the familiar vibration rumbling through the research platform. Elena monitored the readings, expecting nothing but another disappointment. At exactly 213 meters, the drill shuddered. The vibration changed pitch, transforming from a rumble to a high-pitched whine that set everyone's teeth on edge. The radar display flickered, distorted, then went completely dark. Power failure. Elena wondered aloud, checking connections. Marcus shook his head, pointing to the still-functioning lights. Just the electronics. The drill operator called out from his station. "Hit something solid. Metal, maybe." Elena rushed to the drill core as they extracted it, heart pounding. The sample end glistened with an impossible metallic sheen, perfectly smooth, with a faint blue luminescence that pulsed in a precise rhythm. "That's not natural," whispered Marcus, stepping back involuntarily. Elena reached for the sample. The moment her gloved finger touched the surface, the metal's glow intensified. Microscopic patterns rippled outward from the point of contact, like liquid responding to a droplet. "Get me a containment unit," she ordered, trying to keep her voice steady. "And call base camp. We need a full research team here immediately." Within 24 hours, the remote Antarctic site transformed into a hive of activity. Additional radar equipment confirmed a massive structure buried in the ice, roughly circular, 300 meters in diameter, with the thickness of a skyscraper. Dr. Amit Sharma, a theoretical physicist Elena had collaborated with years ago, arrived with the second wave of researchers. He examined the recovered fragment with wide eyes. "It defies analysis," he explained during the first briefing. "The material contains elements not on our periodic table. It maintains a constant temperature regardless of environmental conditions. And most importantly, it's emitting a directional signal toward a specific point in space." "You're saying it's broadcasting?" asked General Winters, the military liaison who'd appeared suspiciously quickly after their discovery. "Not broadcasting," Amit corrected. "Signaling. There's a difference. This is targeted communication." That evening, as researchers argued theories and military personnel established a perimeter, Elena returned to the drill site alone. The excavation had widened, revealing a 2-meter section of the object. The surface gleamed under the floodlights, patterns still rippling across it like digital fingerprints. Acting on instinct, Elena removed her glove and placed her bare palm against the surface. The effect was immediate and extraordinary. The entire excavation site illuminated with brilliant blue light. The ground trembled beneath her feet. Deep within the ice, something ancient awakened. A perfect sphere of light materialized above the excavation, expanding to 3 meters in diameter. Within it, a 3-dimensional star map appeared. Thousands of points connected by luminous lines. One point pulsed brighter than the others. Earth's location. Beside it hovered a symbol Elena couldn't recognize, yet somehow understood. Cradle. As researchers and soldiers rushed to the site, Elena stared at the galactic map with a single, overwhelming certainty. Humanity was never alone, and something out there had been waiting for us to find this. The star map remained suspended above the excavation site for exactly 17 minutes before dissolving into particles of light. By then, every camera on the research base had captured it from multiple angles. Every satellite capable of redirecting had focused on the Antarctic coordinates. The discovery was impossible to contain. 3 days later, the site resembled a small city. Research domes sprouted across the ice like mushrooms. Military helicopters shuttled personnel and equipment continuously. Representatives from 17 nations argued protocols and jurisdiction, while scientists worked around the clock to understand what they now called the beacon. Dr. Elena Reyes hadn't slept in 36 hours. She stood in the central research dome, staring at the holographic recreation of the star map, while political attaches argued behind her. The United States has the resources to properly investigate this phenomenon, insisted a State Department official. A Chinese diplomat countered immediately. This discovery affects all humanity. No single nation can claim authority. Dr. Amit Sharma appeared at Elena's side, offering a steaming cup of coffee. "They've been at it for hours," he whispered. Meanwhile, the actual work stalls. Elena nodded toward the exposed section of the artifact visible through the dome's observation window. "Every conventional analysis has failed. The material won't allow sampling. Scanning technology malfunctions near it. We're using technology to study technology that's clearly thousands of years beyond our understanding." Emmett's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. "What if that's precisely the problem? We're approaching this with our tools, our machines, but remember how it responded to your touch." Elena glanced at her palm, still tingling occasionally since that first contact. "You think it wants direct interaction? That's hardly scientific. Neither is an object that reconfigures its molecular structure when observed," Emmett replied. "This technology might operate on principles that respond to consciousness itself." The argument behind them escalated as a Russian general pounded the table. Elena made her decision. "Clear the dome," she announced, turning to face the assembled officials. "I need to try something without interference." The authority in her voice silenced the room. After the inevitable protests and security concerns were addressed, Elena and Amit stood alone before the excavation window. "What exactly are you planning?" Amit asked. Elena removed her gloves. "If it responds to conscious observation, let's give it undivided attention." She pressed the external access panel and stepped through the airlock to the excavation site. The artifact's surface rippled as she approached, patterns flowing toward her like metal coming alive. Taking a deep breath, Elena placed both hands directly on the surface and focused her complete attention on it, not analyzing or questioning, but simply observing with open awareness. The response was immediate and spectacular. The artifact's surface liquefied beneath her palms, rippling outward in concentric circles. A humming vibration rose from deep within the ice, resonating through her bones. The excavation site, illuminated as sections of ice, turned transparent, revealing the true scale of what lay beneath, not just a circular object, but an entire complex stretching hundreds of meters in all directions. A vertical beam of light erupted from the artifact, projecting not just the star map again, but an intricate three-dimensional diagram of the entire structure. Beside it appeared symbols that shifted and transformed, almost as if attempting to find a language Elena could understand. Through her headset, she heard Amit's astonished voice. "Elena, it's trying to communicate. The symbols are cycling through mathematical sequences. It's creating a translation matrix." Elena stood transfixed as the lights coalesced into recognizable patterns. The structure beneath the ice wasn't just sending a signal to space. It was an archive, a repository, a library of knowledge buried on Earth millions of years before humans evolved. And something out there had received its activation signal. The translation matrix stabilized within 48 hours. Basic communication became possible, though the concepts often stretched the limits of human language. The artifact, or rather, the intelligence within it, identified itself as a repository of collective knowledge. It had been placed on Earth approximately 2 million years ago, during the early stages of human evolution. Elena and Emmett led a small team of specialists chosen for their expertise and discretion. The excavation had revealed a hidden entrance, a perfectly circular opening that appeared in the ice when approached by human biosignatures. "It recognizes human DNA," Amit explained as the team prepared to enter. The repository was specifically designed for us to find. Elena nodded, adjusting her equipment. But according to its communications, we weren't supposed to find it for another 3 centuries. General Winters, now a permanent fixture at the site, frowned. Is it dangerous that we've discovered it early? We're about to find out, Elena replied. The entrance led to a sloping passage that descended deep into the ice, illuminated by soft blue light emanating from the walls themselves. The passage opened into a vast chamber that defied possibility, a space far larger than should exist beneath the ice without collapsing. Spatial manipulation technology, whispered Dr. Catry, their quantum physicist. The internal dimensions exceed the external container. The chamber contained dozens of suspended animation pods arranged in concentric circles. Each contained what appeared to be preserved specimens of different species, none recognizable as Earth life forms. Between the circles stood pedestals supporting hovering holographic displays, currently dormant. What is this place? Breathed Marcus, who had insisted on joining the exploration team. Elena approached one of the pedestals. It's a biological archive, a catalog of life forms from across the galaxy. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform with a console unlike anything humans had designed. No buttons, screens, or obvious interfaces. Just a smooth, slightly concave surface that rippled like the artifact above. Marcus stepped forward impulsively, reaching toward the console. Maybe it activates like the outer section did, with touch. Wait, Elena began, but it was too late. Marcus's palm made contact with the surface. The entire chamber surged with energy. The pedestals activated simultaneously, projecting complex holographic data. The specimens in the pods illuminated from within, casting their alien shadows across the walls. A column of light erupted from the central console, coalescing into a humanoid figure composed of intricate patterns of light and energy. Its features were indistinct yet somehow familiar, as if assembled from humanity's collective image of itself. I am the Guardian Interface, it spoke in perfectly accented English, then repeated the greeting in Mandarin, Russian, Arabic, Hindi, and a dozen other human languages. I monitor and protect the repository until retrieval or authorized access. The figure regarded them with evident surprise. Unexpected activation detected. Analyzing current planetary development stage. Its gaze swept across the team. Error. Technological development insufficient for scheduled access. Premature discovery protocol initiated. Elena stepped forward. We found the repository by accident. We mean no harm. The Guardian studied her closely, intent recognized as benign. However, protocol is absolute. The activation signal has been transmitted. Response is now inevitable. Response from whom? Ahmed asked. The caretakers monitor all repositories across this galactic sector. Your species was not scheduled for inclusion in the network for 300 more cycles of your star. Premature discovery requires evaluation. Evaluation of what? General Winters demanded. The Guardian's expression shifted to something resembling concern. Of whether humanity represents a threat to itself and others, if granted access to the knowledge contained here. The repositories contain technology capable of advancing planetary civilization by millennia, or destroying it entirely. The holographic figure gestured, and the chamber walls transformed into viewing screens showing Earth from orbit. The caretakers have been notified of your awakening. They are coming to determine your fate. Preparation time. 7 rotations of your planet. Elena exchanged alarmed glances with Ahmed. 1 week until first contact. News of the impending alien arrival leaked within hours. Despite military containment efforts, satellite images of the Antarctic complex spread across global networks. World leaders scrambled to address populations teetering between panic and wonder. Markets fluctuated wildly. Religious leaders offered contradictory interpretations. In remote areas, people gazed skyward, waiting. Meanwhile, Elena, Amit, and their team worked frantically to extract useful knowledge from the repository before the caretakers arrived. The Guardian has granted limited access. Elena explained during an emergency United Nations video conference, enough to demonstrate our capability to handle the information responsibly. On screens around the world, she displayed schematics extracted from the repository, revolutionary energy systems, medical treatments beyond current imagination, and physics principles that rewrote textbooks overnight. We've already synthesized a room temperature superconductor using their molecular assembly principles, Amit added, holding up a small shimmering disk. This could revolutionize power transmission globally within months, not decades. Research centers worldwide began implementing the partial knowledge released from the repository. The results were immediate and staggering. Quantum computing advanced 5 generations in 3 days. The first functional fusion reactor activated in Japan, producing clean energy at unprecedented scales. Medical researchers synthesized compounds that could potentially cure dozens of previously terminal diseases. But with remarkable progress came inevitable conflict. Nations accused each other of withholding breakthroughs. Corporations filed thousands of patents daily, claiming ownership of alien-inspired technologies. Military leaders demanded weapons applications. The Antarctic site became the most heavily guarded location on Earth, with naval vessels from rival powers maintaining uneasy proximity in the surrounding waters. Elena returned to the repository after 72 sleepless hours of global consultation. The Guardian interface appeared as she entered the central chamber. Your species implements knowledge efficiently, it observed, but not always wisely. We're doing our best, Elena sighed, watching real-time feeds of protests outside research facilities worldwide. Integration of such advanced concepts was always going to be disruptive. The repository is changing, Emmett noted, pointing to the walls where the metallic surface had begun reshaping itself, forming new structures and pathways throughout the complex. The Guardian nodded. Adaptive reconfiguration has begun. The repository prepares for potential outcomes. What outcomes? Elena asked. Acceptance or quarantine. The caretaker's approach with both possibilities prepared. On the viewing screens, deep space telescopes tracked 7 objects moving at impossible speeds toward Earth. Their propulsion methods matched designs found in the repository's database, gravitic manipulation technology centuries beyond human development. Amit studied sensor readings with growing concern. The repository itself is constructing something beneath the primary chamber, some kind of transmission system far more powerful than the initial beacon. The Guardian's expression remained neutral. A necessary precaution. Your species stands at a critical juncture. Elena suddenly realized something she had overlooked. The repository isn't just a library, is it? It's evaluating us too. All interactions are analyzed, confirmed the Guardian. Every decision made since discovery contributes to your species assessment. Assessment against what standard? Demanded General Winters, who had entered silently. The Guardian's form flickered momentarily. The architects who created the repositories established parameters for species inclusion in the galactic network. Species who discover repositories prematurely receive additional scrutiny. And if we fail this scrutiny? Elena asked quietly. Quarantine protocols would be implemented. Your world would be isolated until natural development reaches appropriate thresholds. Typically, several centuries. Outside, the Antarctic sky blazed with unusual aurora patterns, electromagnetic disturbances caused by the approaching vessels. Humanity's first contact with alien life was just hours away, and the fate of Earth hung in the balance of an evaluation humanity never knew it was taking. The Guardian's eyes shifted to Elena. They have arrived ahead of schedule. Prepare your representatives. The 7 vessels positioned themselves in perfect geometric formation around Earth, a heptagon with each ship maintaining identical distance from the planet's surface. Unlike the sleek spacecraft of human imagination, each vessel was distinctly different, suggesting 7 separate civilizations or design philosophies. Military forces worldwide went on high alert despite diplomatic pleas for restraint. Citizens from every nation gathered around screens, watching live feeds from orbital telescopes. Antarctic Research Station personnel evacuated, leaving only essential teams including Elena, Amit, and representatives from major world powers. No communication attempts yet, reported the communications specialist. They're just watching. They're scanning us, Amit corrected, pointing to sensor readings. Every frequency, every wavelength. They're creating a complete model of Earth before making contact. The Guardian interface appeared beside them. Standard caretaker protocol. Assessment begins with observation. Elena studied the vessels on the monitor. These caretakers, are they the ones who built the repositories? No, the Guardian replied. The architects vanished millions of years ago. The caretakers are appointed stewards, monitoring seeded worlds until appropriate developmental stages are reached. A sudden alert sounded. One vessel had detached a smaller craft. It entered atmosphere following a trajectory directly toward Antarctica. They're coming here, General Winters stated unnecessarily, adjusting his uniform. Are they hostile? Unknown, the Guardian answered. This situation is unprecedented in my records. Premature discovery usually results in immediate quarantine. Direct contact suggests alternative protocols. The approaching craft descended with impossible grace, generating no sonic boom despite hypersonic speeds. It settled on the ice near the repository entrance, a smooth ovoid shape that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. A seam appeared in its surface, widening into an entrance. 3 figures emerge, each completely alien to human experience. The first stood nearly 3 meters tall, with an exoskeleton of iridescent plates and 4 upper limbs. The second moved on multiple tentacle-like appendages, its body a translucent blue revealing complex internal structures. The third appeared almost gaseous, its roughly humanoid shape constantly shifting within a contained energy field. Central chamber, the Guardian instructed. They will meet you there. Heart pounding, Elena led the small human delegation, scientists, military, and government representatives, into the repository's heart. The alien visitors arrived moments later, accompanied by hovering devices that emitted soft light. One device projected a field that enveloped the tallest alien. It stepped forward. "We speak through translation matrices," came a voice that somehow sounded simultaneously in every human language. "I am Observer Kizek of the Caretaker Coalition. We have monitored this world since its seeding." Elena stepped forward as humanity's lead scientist. "I am Dr. Elena Reyes. We welcome peaceful contact with your civilizations." The tentacled being moved closer, its translation device creating overlapping harmonics. Premature activation of the repository is unprecedented in this sector. Explanation required. "It was accidental," Elena replied. "We discovered the outer section during routine geological research." The third entity's field fluctuated rapidly. Its translated response seemed tinged with skepticism. Many species claim accidental discovery. Few achieve activation without deliberate intent. Observer Kizek raised an upper limb. "Nevertheless, protocols exist for this contingency. Your species requires evaluation before determination." "Determination of what?" demanded the Chinese representative. "Whether humanity represents acceptable risk if granted access to the network," came the reply. "Most premature discoveries result in species self-destruction or developmental stagnation. The repository contains knowledge that could advance your civilization by thousands of years or end it entirely." Elena felt a chill despite the chamber's regulated temperature. "And if we're deemed an unacceptable risk?" The gaseous entity's field darkened. "Standard quarantine protocols would be implemented. Your world would be isolated until natural development reaches appropriate thresholds." Observer Kizek's compound eyes surveyed the human delegation. "The evaluation begins now. Representatives of Earth, prepare to demonstrate your species' worthiness." The evaluation proceeded in ways no one anticipated. Rather than interrogations or tests of technology, the caretakers requested access to human cultural archives. They immersed themselves in art, music, literature, and historical records. They observed social interactions among the research team. They requested demonstrations of problem-solving approaches from different human cultures. Observer Kizek seemed particularly fascinated by music, its sensory appendages vibrating in response to everything from classical symphonies to indigenous drumming patterns. Your species creates patterns of vibration with no practical purpose, it noted during the third day of evaluation. Yet these patterns evoke complex neurochemical responses. We call it emotional connection, Alina explained. Music transcends language barriers. Inefficient communication method, commented the gaseous entity, identified as Nexus 7, yet strangely effective. The tentacled being, called Morkai, focused on human conflicts. Your recorded history contains continuous violence between subgroups of your own species. This suggests fundamental instability. General Winters bristled, but Amit intervened before he could respond defensively. We don't deny our violent tendencies, Amit acknowledged, but observe how former enemies now collaborate here. He gestured toward the Chinese and American scientists working together on repository data. We adapt. We overcome historical divisions when necessary. Morkai's tentacles rippled in what might have been skepticism. Temporary cooperation under extraordinary circumstances. No, Alina countered. It's more than that. Look at our scientific history. Individual researchers share discoveries across national boundaries, even during conflicts. Knowledge flows despite barriers. While the official evaluation continued above, Alina and Emmett made a remarkable discovery in the repository's lower levels. An entire section contained detailed records of human evolution, genetic sequences, population distributions, and developmental markers going back millions of years. This doesn't make sense, Alina whispered, studying the displays. These records showed direct intervention in human development, genetic modifications dating back to our earliest ancestors. Emmett's expression darkened as he analyzed the data. Someone engineered humanity for specific traits. Enhanced neural plasticity, accelerated frontal lobe development, optimized hand structure for tool manipulation. The architects, Alina wondered. Unlikely, came the Guardian's voice as it appeared beside them. The records indicate ongoing adjustments throughout your species' development, continuing long after the architect's disappearance. Alina felt a cold realization. The caretakers have been manipulating our evolution. When confronted with this discovery, the caretaker delegation reacted with surprising division. Observer Kizek's exoskeleton flared with bioluminescent patterns. Nexus 7's energy field pulsed with rapid fluctuations. Morkai's tentacles contracted defensively. The intervention protocols are classified, Observer Kizek finally stated. Some among the coalition believed your species showed unusual potential. Others considered you dangerous and unpredictable. You've been experimenting on us for millions of years, General Winters demanded, outrage evident. Guiding, corrected Nexus 7, optimizing certain traits while minimizing others, which explains why humans were given a repository at all, Amit realized. We're not random recipients, we're test subjects. The Guardian interface suddenly manifested at full size, its presence more commanding than before. Partial information creates misunderstanding. The complete records indicate specialized design parameters for Earth's repository, distinct from all others. The repository's walls illuminated with detailed schematics, comparing Earth's facility to others across the galaxy. The neural interfaces were specifically calibrated for human brain patterns, the Guardian continued. Not adapted, designed specifically for your species from the beginning. Observer Kizek turned to face its fellow caretakers. The architects anticipated humanity. The question is why. The revelation that Earth's repository was specifically designed for humans created a diplomatic crisis among the caretakers. Observer Kizek requested an emergency communication with the orbiting vessels, leaving Alina's team in tense uncertainty. This changes everything, Amit muttered, studying the comparative schematics. The repository wasn't just placed here randomly. It was engineered specifically for human discovery. The Guardian interface expanded the holographic display. The architects left precise instructions regarding Earth. Your species was designated potential inheritors with specialized developmental protocols. Inheritors of what? Elena asked. That information remains sealed until evaluation completion, the Guardian replied. 12 hours later, Observer Kizek returned with a formal pronouncement. The Caretaker Coalition would conduct a full evaluation tribunal, an unprecedented procedure for a premature discovery. Representatives of all significant human cultural, scientific, and governance traditions will present evidence of your species' capabilities and intentions, the tall alien announced. The tribunal begins in one planetary rotation. World leaders scramble to select appropriate representatives. The repository's central chamber reconfigured itself into a circular forum with the 3 caretakers positioned at equidistant points. Hovering translation devices ensured perfect communication. Elena watched anxiously as human representatives took turns addressing the tribunal. Scientists presented humanity's greatest discoveries. Artists shared creations spanning cultures and centuries. Philosophers articulated humanity's evolving ethical frameworks. Military leaders spoke of changing approaches to conflict resolution. Throughout the presentations, Elena noticed something troubling. The caretakers occasionally exchanged what appeared to be private communications, their translation fields briefly deactivating during these exchanges. "They're hiding something," she whispered to Emmett. While the tribunal continued above, Elena and Emmett returned to the evolutionary archives, searching for additional information. In a subsection previously overlooked, they discovered records of deliberate technological suppression. These are intervention logs, Emmett realized, scanning the data. Certain human discoveries were systematically undermined or redirected throughout our history. Promising researchers who approached specific technological breakthroughs died mysteriously or abandoned their work. Elena's blood ran cold as she recognized the pattern. They've been deliberately limiting our development, keeping us from advancing too quickly in certain fields. When she presented this evidence to the tribunal, the reaction was immediate and dramatic. The caretaker delegation fractured into open disagreement. Containment protocols were authorized for security purposes. Nexus 7 insisted, its energy field pulsating with intense patterns. Interference violated the architect's directives. Observer Kizek countered, its exoskeleton flaring with bioluminescent anger. Morkai's tentacles lashed agitatedly. The human species demonstrated unpredictable development vectors. Limitations were necessary. The human representatives watched in stunned silence as ancient rivalries between the caretaker factions erupted into open conflict. What had begun as humanity's evaluation had transformed into a power struggle among the cosmic authorities, with Earth as the contested prize. The Guardian interface suddenly expanded to its full capacity, interfacing directly with the repository's central systems. Energy surged throughout the complex as dormant systems activated simultaneously. Caretaker authority protocol suspended, the Guardian announced in a voice that resonated with newfound power. Primary directive override engaged. The repository's entire structure illuminated from within. Every screen across Earth, from smartphones to broadcast stations, displayed the same message simultaneously, translated into all human languages. Humanity has completed the first trial by discovering truth without assistance. The architect's legacy awakens. Observer Kizek turned to Elena, its compound eyes revealing what might have been respect. "You were never meant to be judged by us. You were meant to judge us." The repository transformed. Walls reconfigured into new chambers. Dormant systems hummed to life. The Guardian interface expanded, its presence filling the central chamber with luminous energy as it accessed previously locked archives. "Full activation protocols engaged," it announced. "The time for limited disclosure has ended." The Guardian projected a vast historical record, the complete story of the architects and their legacy. The images surrounded the assembled humans and caretakers in a breathtaking panorama of cosmic history. "The beings you call architects evolved billions of your years ago. the Guardian explained. They seeded countless worlds with life, guiding evolution toward intelligence across the galaxy. The display showed magnificent structures spanning solar systems, technology beyond anything humanity could comprehend. But approximately 23 million years ago, they detected something approaching from beyond the galactic rim. An existential threat even they could not overcome. The images darkened, showing massive disturbances in space, entire star systems going dark. With extinction inevitable, the architects implemented their final protocol. They scattered repositories across thousands of promising worlds, each containing their complete knowledge and technology, each designed to activate when its host species reached appropriate developmental stages. Observer Kizek stepped forward. The caretakers were appointed temporary guardians until worthy inheritors emerge. But the architects created certain repositories with unique parameters. The Guardian continued. Earth's repository was designed specifically for human neural patterns, activated not by technological achievement, but by qualities the architects valued above all else. What qualities? Elena asked. Adaptability, creativity, the capacity to reconcile contradictory truths, the ability to cooperate despite inherent competitive instincts, the imagination to envision possibilities beyond existing paradigms. The Guardian's form shifted, becoming more defined, almost human in appearance. Your species evolved with a unique combination of logic and intuition, competition and cooperation, stability and innovation, qualities the architects themselves possessed. Morkai's tentacles rippled with what might have been resignation. Some caretaker factions feared these qualities. Others sought to enhance them. Your evolutionary path became contested ground among us. The architects anticipated this possibility. The Guardian revealed. They embedded in each repository a final test, one that would identify species capable of discovering truth despite deliberate obstruction. Few had succeeded. Nexus 7's energy field pulsed reluctantly. Humanity was not expected to pass this test for centuries. And yet we did. Amid observed. What happens now? The Guardian gestured, and the repository's structure continued its transformation. The complete archives are now accessible to humanity, not just technology, but the collective wisdom of the architects and all species they encountered. Observer Kizek addressed the human delegation formally. The Caretaker Coalition will withdraw. Our stewardship ends with the emergence of legitimate inheritors. How you proceed with this inheritance determines your species' future, and perhaps that of all life in this galaxy. As the alien representatives prepared to depart, Elena realized the magnitude of what had transpired. The threat the architects feared, is it still out there? The Guardian's expression became solemn. The intergalactic anomaly continues its approach. Estimated arrival in your solar system, approximately 8,000 years. The architects believed that species with your particular combination of traits might devise solutions even they could not imagine. The caretakers departed Earth's orbit the following day, some seemingly in reverence, others in apparent concern. The repository continued its transformation, interfacing with human technologies worldwide, offering knowledge at a pace humanity could absorb without self-destruction. Elena stood with Amit at the Antarctic site, watching the sunrise over a world forever changed. So that's the truth, she said softly. We weren't just found by alien technology. We were created to transcend it, Amit finished. The most human quality of all isn't our technology. It's our ability to imagine what doesn't yet exist.